Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something that, honestly, is a highly misunderstood eating disorder. It's one of those conditions that totally flies under the radar, but it literally impacts the daily lives of so many people. By the end of our time together today, you're going to have a rock-solid understanding of exactly what's happening clinically. Okay, so let's just start by completely debunking a massive myth right off the bat. Arfid goes far, far beyond just quote-unquote picky eating. I mean, picky eating is super common, right? And it usually doesn't impact your overall health. But Arfid involves extreme avoidance that leads to genuine, severe medical and social impairment. Calling it picky eating completely invalidates what these individuals are actually going through, and we want to clear that up right away. To put into perspective just how pressing this is, check this out: 4.7%. A recent study of over 50,000 U.S. adults found that roughly 4.7% screened positive for Arfid. Basically, that's about 1 in 20 adults. What's actually wild about this is that, unlike anorexia or bulimia, Arfid affects men and women at really similar rates. It might even be slightly higher in males and non-white individuals. So it's way more common than people realize, which is exactly why understanding it is absolutely crucial. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's the framework we're going to use today. First, more than picky eating. Then, the 3 Arfid subtypes. We'll explore why one size fails, look at tailoring the therapy, and wrap up with the path to recovery. Let's jump right into section 1, more than picky eating, understanding the stakes. So ARFID stands for Avoidant/Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. Now, the absolute key distinction here, and this is what separates ARFID from other eating disorders like anorexia or bulimia, is that ARFID is not driven by a fear of weight gain. It has literally nothing to do with distress about body shape. It's simply about avoiding or limiting food to the point where it causes meaningful physical, nutritional, or daily life problems. Because it's not tied to body image, a person can have ARFID at completely different body sizes and still be struggling intensely. It's a totally different ballgame. Since ARFID so drastically limits a person's diet, the stakes of leaving it untreated are incredibly high. Think about it. The body just can't function without the right fuel. This leads to chronic nutritional deficiencies. We're talking missing vitamin C or developing anemia. It can cause severe malnutrition and medical complications that mess with nearly every organ system. Irregular heartbeats, GI issues, even osteoporosis and bone loss in young adults. And, wow, we cannot ignore the emotional toll. Prolonged ARFID often leads to deep social isolation and depression. Food is such a huge part of human connection, so avoiding it can cause overwhelming loneliness. Now, what's really interesting about this is that ARFID doesn't look the same for everyone. Let's move into section 2, the 3 ARFID subtypes, the clinical reality. All right, let's break down the 3 main subtypes of ARFID into some easily digestible mental buckets. First up, we've got the avoidant subtype, which is primarily sensory-based. Second is the restrictive subtype, and that one is driven by a chronic low appetite. And third is the aversive subtype, which is deeply fear-based. Now, a lot of people might experience a mix of these, but identifying the primary driver is the absolute key to figuring out what they're actually going through. Let's zoom in on a couple of these. The reality of the avoidant or sensory-based subtype is that their aversions are not a choice. It's a genuine sensory reaction. If someone has this subtype, they might have an incredibly strong physical and emotional reaction to just the texture, the smell, or even the appearance of food. For instance, they might completely reject anything creamy or slimy, like, say, yogurt or mashed potatoes, and stick only to dry, crunchy foods. It's so vital to understand this isn't them just being stubborn, right? It's a profound, genuine neurological sensory processing reaction. The food is literally distressing to their senses. Then we have the restrictive subtype. You'll often hear folks with this presentation just say, "I'm just not hungry." For them, eating is genuinely viewed as a chore. They rarely feel physical hunger, they get full incredibly quickly, and they just have a general disinterest in food altogether. Over time, eating only tiny amounts of a few bland foods can lead to dangerous weight loss and severe nutritional drops. And again, this is entirely without any underlying body image concerns. Oh, and balancing out our 3 subtypes is the aversive type, where someone avoids food because they're terrified of choking or vomiting, which is often tied to a past traumatic experience. Now that we've mapped out those very different presentations, we're going to pivot. Section 3, why one size fails, the pivot. So, I want to pose this pivotal question directly to you.
why does identifying the specific subtype matter so much for treatment? Well, if a clinician doesn't know the why behind the food avoidance, the treatment is fundamentally going to fail. You simply cannot use the same intervention for someone who physically cannot tolerate the texture of a strawberry as you would for someone who's having a full-blown panic attack because they're terrified they'll choke on that exact same strawberry. Makes sense? A one-size-fits-all approach is a recipe for failure here.
So, the crucial point is we have to match the clinical solution directly to the root cause. Let's look at Section 4, Tailoring the Therapy, Matching the Solution. If an individual has sensory-based ARFID, the treatment is going to lean really heavily on exposure therapy. That means safely and gradually introducing them to those feared textures and flavors to slowly build up their physical tolerance. But on the flip side, if the ARFID is fear-based, the treatment needs to be rooted in anxiety-focused interventions, things like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT. In that case, the goal isn't just about tasting the food. It's about actively challenging and reframing those terrifying thoughts about choking or getting sick. As you can see, the approaches are just completely different. But beyond those specific targeted therapies, successfully treating ARFID actually requires a really comprehensive team approach. We're talking everything from a registered dietitian doing nutritional counseling to family therapy. And it's also worth noting that ARFID frequently overlaps with other mental health conditions. For example, roughly 13.8% of adults with ARFID have a history of autism, and traits of OCD and ADHD are incredibly common. Because of this, specialized psychiatric care and medication management are often absolutely vital pieces of the recovery puzzle. That's right alongside beautiful holistic approaches like art or ecotherapy to help manage all that stress. Which brings us to our final section, number 5, the path to recovery, hope and healing. The truly fantastic news here is that with compassionate, early, and tailored intervention, people absolutely can and do heal. And this brilliantly illustrates the mindset needed from everyone involved. Recovery takes immense time and patience. Every single tiny bit of progress matters. If you're supporting someone with ARFID, steady, gentle, pressure-free encouragement is exactly what they need. Honestly, dismissive phrases like "just try it" or "you'll be fine" actually minimize their very real neurological and psychological experience, and usually it just causes more frustration. Celebrating the small victories is what makes all the difference in the world. I want to end our explainer today with a final thought. Could truly understanding the why behind our eating habits entirely change the way we view recovery and maybe even how we view each other? When we step back and realize that food avoidance isn't about willpower, that it actually involves deep sensory, neurological, or trauma-based roots, we become so much more empathetic. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the complexities of Arfid. I really hope this structured look has enlightened you, validated experiences you might have seen or felt, and sparked your curiosity to keep learning.